Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Samiksha and in today's video I am going to talk about assessment centers. So you would have heard the term assessment centers being used by companies in general as a recruitment process. So in this video I am going to talk about what happens during an assessment center, and it's also based on my experience. So assessment centers are mainly used for graduate programs. Graduate programs or trainee programs are used. They are basically offered by top companies like BMW, Audi, there's Merck, Bayer, Boehringer Ingelheim, DHL, Edeka, also global graduate trainee programs. So these programs are designed for newly graduates or for young professionals, and they are for 1 to 2 years where you work on rotation projects. So they could be global, where you work around the globe, different departments of the company, and they are for 1 to 2 years. You work on different rotation projects, and after these 2 years you are placed based on your interests, based on your performance, and also mentorship from your supervisors. You are placed in one of the most top sought after positions, and you're prepared for then the leadership positions in companies. Let's talk about what happens during the assessment center. So mainly it's you have first a preliminary screening. So first you send in your CV, the preliminary screening is done, and you're invited for the first interview. If you haven't watched a video on top 15 introductory interview questions, I highly recommend that you do so, because in the introductory interview they ask you basic questions. You meet the HR. It's more like a get to know each other, where they ask you basic questions. And after the introductory interview, the first introductory interview, some companies invite you for a technical round. And for me, the assessment center that I attended, I was directly invited to the assessment center after the introductory interview. So on the day of the assessment center, the evening before the assessment center, they get together with the assessors of the assessment center, with the prospective candidates who were invited. So around 200 applications went for this graduate program, and 12 people were invited for the final assessment center round. So these 12 candidates were there, the assessors were there, the HR was there, and in the get to know each other evening, there was dinner, and then everyone got the opportunity to get to know each other, to network and ask their questions. On the day of the assessment center, the day started at around 8 o'clock in the morning, where we went into the campus of the company, and we were given like a visitor's card where all the prospective candidates were sitting. The assessors came, they introduced themselves. We already knew them from the evening before, but they still introduced themselves, and they give you the agenda of the day. In this agenda, there are the different rounds. These rounds comprise, they could be interviews, exercises, they could be presentations. For me, the first round was a presentation. They had already given me the topic 2 weeks before, and I had to prepare the presentation. So for the first round, I gave my presentation that I had pre-prepared. They asked me follow-up questions on the presentation. It was like a business idea, and I presented it, and they asked me follow-up questions like how would you implement it, what made you think about this idea, and so on. It was a 15-minute long presentation and some follow-up questions. The next round, I had to give a presentation about someone in my life from whom I got the inspiration. So basically, someone who inspires you in your life. You have to give a presentation on someone who inspires, someone or something that inspires you in your life. So I had also prepared this one, and I went and gave my presentation. Here I had to make like a flow chart and explain them. I could use some props. I was allowed to use some props, or I was allowed to use like a flow chart to present my idea, but no presentation, so no digital tools. After the second round, we had like a lunch break, and during the lunch break, you again sit with the assessors, you sit with the other candidates, and I would say that also during every time that you're interacting with the people who are taking your interviews, or with the HR, or with the other potential candidates, someone is watching you. So you have to always, they are watching you for your communication skills, for how you present yourself, how you talk to others, your etiquettes, and so on. So even during the lunch break, you have to be very careful of the things that you say, and you have to be very professional. After the lunch was the third round. In the third round, I was given like exercise. I was given a scenario where there was a conflicting employee whom there was a conflict, and I had to convince him to submit a certain project before the deadline because of the urgency that because of the request of the client. So I had to convince him. This was more like testing your conflict management kind of an exercise, and I was invited to the room where an interviewer, an assessor, was going to act with me, enact the situation with me. So they were wanting to see how I approach this particular problem, how I solve it, if I come up with a solution, or if I'm able to convince the other employee. You have to enact your role that you have been given, and you have to come to a solution, but it cannot go on and on. You get about 10 to 15 minutes to talk to a person and come to the decision. Okay. After this was the final round, where I was sent to a room of about around 6 to 8 assessors. So they were sitting, interviewers were sitting, and I went, and this was mainly a retrospective round where you reflect on what you did throughout the day, what were the mistakes that you did, and how would you improve it. If you would have not done it, how would you do it otherwise, and so on. So it was more like a reflection on how you performed, how you think you performed during the day. And then again, certain follow-up questions. There was someone who was an interviewer sitting very close to me, was also looking at how I sit, how I'm explaining my body language basically while I'm answering the interview questions. So this was the final day. One by one there were interviews, but the good part was that for 2 interview rounds, you are pre-prepared, so you already at least know what you're going to talk about. For the other 2 rounds, they were completely new. For example, the enacting one, where I was given a situation and I had to act and convince the other employee. This was completely new to me. Of course, you can prepare for such behavioral questions. I have made a video on behavioral questions and what are the kind of questions asked and how you should prepare for them. You could watch that one. All in all, experience. If you get through, of course, you get into one of the top programs and top companies, and then eventually be placed in one of the leadership positions. So definitely a great opportunity. If you are a recent master's graduate, I highly recommend that you look at graduate programs of these top companies and apply for them. You get an insight into different industries, so the very holistic experience overall. And that was all I wanted to that was all I wanted to share about my own experience of an assessment center and why you should apply for graduate programs. If you liked this video, if you found it informative, please do not forget to like, share and subscribe, and follow me for more such informative videos. Until next time, bye and take care.